Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on another episode of Ask Sharifah. Boy, are we having fun today. We just finished the episode, very interesting, but this episode is definitely going to be interesting as well. We're going to do a couple of exercises. We're going to learn. So guess what? You definitely want to make sure your friends don't miss out on this episode, because friends don't let friends miss out on Ask Sharifah. So as you join us in the comment section, if you have questions or if you have comments, please go ahead and ask them in the comment section. I'll go ahead and pass them along to our guest. Today's guest is a pioneer in the field of stress management. So he's going to talk to us a little bit about what we need to know about managing our stress. Good afternoon, Mr. Jerry Teplitz. How are you?
Fine, Sharifah. Yourself?
I am wonderful. I'm excited. And you know what? I need to know how to manage some of this stress that I have.
You have stress. How could that happen?
I don't know. I think they call it life.
For all of us, yeah, correct.
So tell us a little bit about you.
As a matter of fact, stress is probably the really number one killer of folks in the country, because a lot of diseases and illnesses that we get actually emanate from the amount of stress that you have.
I believe that. I definitely believe that. I believe, and this is just my own personal belief, that all disease, whether mental and physical, start from stress, because the body is in stress, and that's what creates the dis-ease in the body. And so when you eliminate the stress that's stressing the body out, then you have the ability to eliminate the disease, unless it's gone past what some people consider the point of no return, which, then you may need healing or miracles. But again, I want to say this: I'm not a doctor. I don't have a degrees in medical, degrees in any aspect of it, but that's just my personal belief, Jerry.
Well, fortunately, I have a Ph.D. in holistic health sciences, which I can't talk
One of us does. Well, thank you. Well, tell us about what you do.
So let me go back into some history that'll tell you how I got here and what I do, because I view myself now as an expert in brain performance and neuroplasticity. Mm-hmm. It started my direction in the early 70s. I was actually living in Chicago, and I was an attorney at the time, working for the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency, graduated from Northwestern Law School, and hanging around a group of friends in Chicago that were getting into things that were weird back then, things that are very commonplace now, like yoga, meditation, nutrition. But back then, that was pretty weird stuff. And I was actually not interested in it. I was scared of it. I didn't want to do anything with it. But I kept hanging around this group of friends, and I got peer pressured into trying some things. And really, I tried them to kind of shut them up, and they'd leave me alone and wouldn't pressure me to try things. And so one of the things I decided to do was Hatha yoga. Mm-hmm. Most people know it as yoga, but there are different types of yoga. That one was yoga, Hatha yoga at that time. And I actually took it with a negative attitude. I was going to try to prove to them that it didn't work, so that, as I said, they'd leave me alone. The problem is, it worked. Shortly after I started doing it, I noticed lower back pain problems I had most of my life were gone, and I had more flexibility than I've had as a high school athlete. I got so excited, I started studying it and became a master teacher of Hatha yoga, and just kept studying and studying, and eventually got a master's and doctorate degree in holistic health sciences. And in '74, I created a program for college students called How to Relax and Enjoy Being a Student and Passing Your Exams. And I was showing them things like yoga, meditation, again, when it was weird stuff. And I was even showing them a Japanese pressure technique called shiatsu, that you can do on yourself as well as others, and I showed them how to get rid of a headache or a hangover in 90 seconds. Mm-hmm. Quite popular on college campuses, getting rid of a hangover in 90 seconds. And then I ran across some work called behavioral kinesiology, mm-hmm. which is muscle checking of the body, and started incorporating that in what I did, and wound up moving into the business arena with that, and I've been there ever since. Business conventions, trade associations. I've spoken to groups from the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta to American Bankers Association, National Association of Realtors, American Subcontract Association, pretty much across the board, in terms of really showing people how their energy system operates and how they can take charge of it pretty much immediately.
Wow. Couple of questions that come to mind when you discussed the how to get rid of a hangover in 90 seconds. Was this through meditation or
No,
what?
it was a pressure technique called shiatsu,
Okay.
and it's applying a very hard, steady direction on parts of the head and neck, and literally the way I discovered it worked for hangovers. I was at a convention called National Association for Campus Activities, where buyers from university programming boards, activity boards, union boards would be coming to buy quote unquote entertainment for their campus, but also there was a lecture part, and that's where I fit in. So I had an exhibit booth, and one morning this student comes up to me and says, "Can you do anything for a hangover?" And I said, "Well, I have the headache treatment. I don't know if it'll do anything for a hangover, but sit down." And I did it on him. 90 seconds later, he jumps up and says, "Let's party." So that's how I figured out that it worked for hangovers as well.
He was ready for it to go again. That's wonderful. Now, you also mentioned the bankers and the realtors in some of these organizations. Those are pretty high stress industries that you dealt with. Did you begin to see any patterns or similarities between these organizations?
Well, it's that people all have stress. It's a bunch of years ago they did downsizing and right sizing in companies and organizations, and it just pumped up people's levels of stress even higher than it had been. And so what I was doing was giving them real tools that they could use right away.
Mm-hmm.
Then, by the way, in 1986, I ran across this other work called Brain Gym. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, Sharifah.
I have heard of it. I'm not very familiar with it, but I have heard of it.
Well, what it is movement exercises that were originally created for children and adults with learning disabilities by Dr. Paul Dennison and his gal wife. Dennison has a Ph.D. in education, and so he was seeing what was going on with the kids, and so he started exploring, and it took many years for him to develop the system. And so Brain Gym are these movement exercises, and I got introduced to it in 1986, got certified in it, and noticed that people were using it primarily in the education arena. People were being certified. Since Dennison had a PhD in education, they were educators, and they were administrators, and they were counselors and teachers, and using it primarily for kids. And so when I got certified, my background was more in the business arena, and nobody was doing anything there. And so I asked the Dennisons if I could create a course for salespeople using this work, and they said yes. And so I created a one-day seminar called Switched on Selling. And it's a brain rewiring approach, Sharita, to selling, not a technique approach. Can I tell you a little bit about a major study we did on the results that we had with this work?
Absolutely, because I love selling, and I would love to be able to switch on selling.
So we did this study with 695 salespeople. We gave them a pre-seminar questionnaire when they walked in first thing in the morning. Post-seminar questionnaire at the end of the day. But then we collected the forms back from them and got them back to them a month later and asked them to do it a third time to get over seminar high or placebo effect. Because, Sharifah, have you ever gone to a seminar? You leave real excited. 3 days later, you're doing what you did before.
Yeah, absolutely, all the time.
Yeah, so I wanted to see, did anything actually change? It's not worth doing it unless you can get real change and transformation, is my attitude. So beginning of the day, just a quick example, one of the statements was, "I'm comfortable asking for the order and closing the sale." Pretty important part of the selling process. So beginning of the day, 52% of these real salespeople responded negatively to that statement. End of the seminar day, it dropped to 8%. So
Oh, wow.
from 52% to only 8% there. A month later, they got better in that it dropped to 6% only still there. So that's on the negative side. Now, on the positive side, I think it's even more dramatic because the beginning of the day to the statement, I'm comfortable asking for the order and closing the sale, beginning of the seminar day, 18% were there. Strongly agree. End of the seminar day jumped up to 35%. A month later, Sharifah, they got better. It moved up to 50% with the other 43% in agree. We now had 93% on the positive side without a single technique taught the entire day. We were just using neuroplasticity basically to go into the brain and use very simple movement exercises, which were actually creating these dramatic effects. Now, those are people's attitudes about selling. You want to hear a story about the bottom line impact of this seminar?
Absolutely.
So here's what happened. Middle of the recession, I did this program for my regular program for a group called Entrepreneurs Organization. And one of the attendees is a guy named Kevin Kordick. He's what I view as an entrepreneur's entrepreneur. He was past president of the National Pest Management Association. He owned a pest control company called Active Termite and Pest Control in Virginia Beach, Virginia, where I live. And he also received a stewardship award from that group. He received Businessman of the Year from the Hampton Roads Chamber of Commerce. And twice his business was selected the best place to work in Virginia. And so you're talking about somebody who I view as an entrepreneur's entrepreneur. So he decides to put half his sales force through the class. And he's going to put his top people in because that's what a lot of companies will do. They'll put their top folks into a training thing. They go up a little bit. You know, we got some good benefit. And I told him to put his mediocre bottom folks in the class. And Kevin and I actually had to have a long discussion about that, and he finally agreed to do it. So they go through the seminar. He rolls 8 people. Immediately after the class, 6 of his 8 people, I mean, literally the next day, jump above his top tier people. They create a higher top tier. Now, he then puts the rest of his sales force in the class a few months later. And a year later, which was August 2010, I asked Kevin what happened over the course of the year. And this is when we started to move out of the recession into slow recovery. And he said he doubled his profits.
Wow.
And that's why other pest control companies were barely holding their own or going out of business. On 2 of his high-end product lines, he became the #1 distributor in the country, and one of his people jumped up over 300%.
Oh, wow. I have to learn this.
Yes, from a one-day seminar. Now, of the 6 who immediately jumped above his top tier originally, 2 of them thought this seminar was actually a crock, a waste of time. They actually used other words. I'm not going to repeat.
I can imagine.
Yeah, and so he sits him down in his office 4 months after the seminar, and he says, here's your stats before the one day, here's your stats since the one day, what changed? And even these 2 guys said it was the one-day seminar. So it's not a belief program. You don't have to believe it's going to work. You just go through the process and it creates the change. Now, Sharita, you've heard the story, the term, the rest of the story, correct?
Yes.
And so would you like to hear the rest of the story on Kevin and what happened?
Absolutely.
So 5 years later, I never did another training program for Kevin's folks because his folks actually stayed with him. They really liked working for him. 5 years later, Kevin sells his company to the world's 4th largest pest control company. And they bought him because they wanted to know what was the secret sauce that had Kevin outperforming everybody else in the industry that was his size. After the sale, Kevin said one of the pieces of the secret sauce is 5 years before he put his people through the switched on selling seminar. I never did another training for him. That was just the only one.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. So what can we learn? What is the switched on selling seminar? What is it? I have to give me some technique because I love selling. Like for instance, I'll tell you me and my philosophy. I'm a salesperson. I tell people I can sell just about anything. Doesn't matter what it is because I'm a sales person. However, it must be an incoming call or incoming inquiry. I don't like cold calling. I don't like knocking on doors or outbound calls. So for me, my success rate there is lower than if there's an interest in what I'm offering. So what are some of the techniques or thoughts that you have on that?
Well, let me tell you a little story first,
Okay.
and then one other piece, and then we'll actually give you an experience and the viewers an experience of how they're impacted by their thoughts. So a woman went through my class, the Switched On Selling, and she goes back to her office, and she's been tasked to call prior clients of the company, sort of like almost a warm call. And she goes to pick up the phone, puts it down, picks it up, puts it down, picks it up, puts it down. She realized she was blocked in doing that.
I would be.
Well, what she did is she did 2 of the brain gyms that I taught in the class, which is called the Positive Attitudes Balance, which gets rid of the negative in 2 minutes. She made 40 calls that day and got 35 appointments.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Just for switching our brain on. Now, there's a newer version of the class that we've created as an online course called Switched On Startup Entrepreneur, because I know a lot of your audience are business owners, entrepreneurs, and they have thoughts in their mind that can get them stuck from going forward in being a successful entrepreneur. And so we actually did this for a group in Charlottesville, Virginia, that a friend of mine was involved with, where they were training homeless people to be entrepreneurs. It's kind of strange thing to do, but they were doing it. So they bring me up to do the seminar. Beginning of the seminar day, when we had them fill out the pre-questionnaire, one of the statements was, I view myself as a successful and effective entrepreneur. Beginning of the day, everybody responded negatively. End of the day, everybody responded positively. And in that case, when we usually do it a month later, we had to do it 2 months later because it was hard to find some of the people. They all held on the positive side. Again, no techniques taught, just brain wiring. So would you like to have an experience?
Oh, yes. Yes. I would love an experience. I love experiences.
So now Sharifah's and I talked about this a little bit. Normally I have people stand up, but because of all the wires around her and having headset on and everything, she's going to do it sitting down. But for you who are watching this, if you can stand up, that'd be great to do. And so that way I can take you through this process with Sharifah as well. So what I'm going to have you do in a moment, I want you, Sharifah, you representing the audience. So I want you to think of a negative business thought. And that's what I want the viewers to do, is think of something really negative in business related to it. So you got something picked out?
Yes.
Okay, and you don't have to say what it is. So in a moment, I'm going to have you close your eyes, and I'll have you start thinking that thought, and the viewers, you'll join in. And don't start yet. And what I'm going to ask you to do is to observe your physical posture. So you're not opening your eyes and kind of looking down. You're just keeping your eyes closed and feeling internally, am I slumped? Am I upright? I'm going to go on the side to side. Whatever you observe is fine. Then I'll ask you to observe your breathing. Is it that shallow, deep? What do you observe? Then I'll ask you to observe if you notice any pain anywhere. And some people do, some people don't. And then I'll ask you to observe what's going on in the mind, what kind of stuff is that you're seeing and experiencing. So are you ready to do this, Sharifah?
I am.
Okay, so you're going to have your eyes closed, and the video will come back on me, so you because she's not going to be talking, so you won't be able to see her, but I can watch her as we do this. And so just everybody now stand up if you can and close your eyes. And now think of that negative business situation. And really intensify that negative thought. And now without adjusting your body, just observe your physical posture. Observe your breathing. Observe any pain you feel in your body and where it is. And observe what's going on in your mind. Okay, Sharifah and viewers, you can open your eyes. If you're standing, you can sit down for a moment. So Sharifah, what did you observe first with posture, if anything?
I felt or I observed that my body was more slumped. It was like I was slumping over. That's what I felt like that.
Great, and that's what most people say, by the way. What did you observe with breathing, if anything?
That the breathing was more like that sound of just like I have to do this, kind of like sharp breaths, I guess is what it's called.
Short breath. So would you say it was shallower breathing?
Yeah, no, it wasn't. It was
faster breathing.
Faster breathing.
Okay, yeah, and a lot of people will observe that their breath actually gets shallow, but faster is perfectly fine. Again, it's not a right or wrong. We're just observing. Did you notice any pain in your body anywhere? And some people do, some people don't.
In my back, in my lower back, I noticed pain.
Okay, and what did you observe going on in your mind, if anything?
In my mind, I saw myself almost as if, because can I tell you what I was imagining?
Sure.
Again, my whole block is the cold calling. And so just the thought of cold calling, it's like I was slumped over the phone, like, I have to do this. I don't want to do this. I'm forced to do this. So it wasn't something that I was interested in doing it. So I'm almost like, oh my God, I have to, call these people.
Got it. Okay.
I'm dramatic.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Now, what I want to do now is give you and the viewers an experience with thinking of a very positive business thought.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, Sharifah, you got one picked out?
Yes.
Okay. And so you're going to stay seated, but for the viewers who are participating with us, stand up again. Okay. And now close your eyes. And now start thinking this very positive business thought. And now just observe your physical posture, your breathing, any pain you feel, and what's going on in your mind. Okay, open your eyes, Sharifah, and viewers, you can open your eyes and be seated again. So what did you observe physical posture, Sharifah?
Everything was straight. I straightened up.
Great, so you're upright. Okay, yeah. Breathing, what'd you observe there? Any difference?
It seemed faster than before.
Oh, even faster. Okay. A lot of people will actually say it felt deeper, but because it was shallow before for a lot of folks. But that's fine. So you did observe something different, though, and that's what we're looking for, is something different. And what did you observe going on? Any pain? Back pain?
No, I didn't have any back pain. I didn't have any pain at all.
So here we took pain that maybe a minute and a half ago you had, and it's gone.
Yes.
When you changed your thought.
Yes.
So is pain in the mind or is pain in the body?
Pain was in the mind.
Yeah, I actually think it's in both places at times, but the mind is very powerful in terms of our pain. And what did you notice difference in terms of the mind this time?
I imagine my phone ringing and people just calling me asking, I didn't have to convince them. I didn't have to try to sell them. People were just like, I want to buy it. I want to get it. Give me this, and it was just a fast paced, energy, happy, excited. And I could just feel the flow coming in as opposed to trying to force it and trying to go after it.
So what you just experienced is, and hopefully viewers have also, and if some of them want to comment in the comment box, if they notice, all they have to do is say notice changes. Mm-hmm. That's all we need to know. We don't have to know exactly where they were at this point. But what it means is you got to experience how negatives in the business arena affect us instantly, how positives affect us instantly. And so what the brain gym movement exercises do, and the process that I've developed and switched on selling and switched on startup entrepreneur, is to find the places where you got that negative going on. And then by using the brain gym movements, we're creating, in effect, new circuitry in the brain. And so what was difficult becomes easy, and your posture becomes different, and your breathing becomes different, and your performance becomes different because you're not where you used to be. You're no longer stuck where you used to be before.
Wow, that is wonderful. If you're just now joining us in the chat room, we are speaking with Jerry Teplitz. He is a pioneer in stress management. And also we're just talking about switched on selling and some of his work. Diana joined us. Diane, Francis, Albert, Crystal, Teresa, Clark, Beverly, Ray, Sherry are all tuned into the show. We have lot of people here. So again, if you have any questions or comments for Mr. Teplitz, please go ahead and ask them in the comments section. I'll go ahead and read those comments or questions to Jerry. So while we're doing that, we're seeing what the response is. We are coming down to the last few minutes of the show, Jerry. So I just wanted to allow you to speak directly to the listeners and let them know not only what you want them to take away from your interview, but any contact information or any final words that you want to continue with.
So for those people who are excited about what I'm sharing in terms of the part related to startup entrepreneurs, I've got that online training program that literally takes you through switching you on for being a startup entrepreneur. There's 20 modules in that class, and it's located at switchedontstartupentrepreneur.com. It's a little long, but switchedontrepreneurship.com. And I just got an email from a gentleman who was up to module 6, is where you fill out the pre-questionnaire, and he wound up sending it to me. And what he wrote in his email, that his mind was absolutely blown away by the first 5 modules, and he couldn't wait to get into the rest of the class. So that's what's going to happen to folks. They get blown away because they're learning and seeing an experience, just like we did just a few moments ago, that are very different. And that will really show you how you can take charge of being a startup entrepreneur. For those who want to look at my Switched On Selling seminar, you'll need to go to my to switchedonselling.com, and you can get that there. So you got 2 choices: switchedonselling.com, switchedontstartupentrepreneur.com.
Fantastic. Any words you would like to leave our viewers with, Jerry?
Yeah, you don't have to be stuck anymore. The thing, just like Sharifah was saying, she thinks of picking up the phone and she kind of collapses. You don't have to be that way anymore. You can actually be free to be the success that you really want to be, and it can happen almost immediately.
I love it. I love it. So, Jerry, I want to thank you for being a guest on today's episode of Ask Sharifah.
You're very welcome. Delighted to be here. Thank you, Sharifah.
You are so welcome, and I definitely have to thank all of our viewers who tuned in to the live episode, all of our viewers who are watching this episode in the archives. Please go ahead and share this interview, because friends don't let friends miss out on Ask Sharifah. And if you're interested in being a guest in sponsorship opportunities or just watching more of my interviews, please visit the website at asksharifah.com. Until then, everyone have a wonderful day. Bye now.